ABC General Hospital spoilers for the week of March 2 to 6 reveal that Willow should be devoting every ounce of her energy to preparing for Congress, to sharpening her rhetoric, refining her alliances, and positioning herself as a rising force whose influence will stretch far beyond Port Charles. The opportunity before her is historic, intoxicating, and dangerous in equal measure. Power is within reach, not as a distant dream, but as something tangible, something she can almost feel beneath her fingertips. For years, she has told herself that her ambitions were rooted in service, in reform, in protecting the vulnerable. But lately, the line between purpose and hunger has blurred. The thought of holding real authority, of shaping policy, controlling narratives, silencing enemies with nothing more than a strategic decision, has begun to eclipse everything else. And yet, the very thing that should anchor her campaign, the clean image of resilience and moral clarity, is threatened by the secret she keeps locked behind a bedroom door. Willow believes she has complete control over Drew. That belief has become the fragile foundation upon which she balances her political ascent. She monitors his medication with clinical precision, adjusts dosages when necessary, times his isolation carefully, and convinces herself that she is not imprisoning him but protecting him from scandal, from enemies, from himself. She tells herself that stability is kindness, that sedation is mercy, that silence is safety. The illusion of control comforts her, because if Drew remains contained, then her path to Congress remains unobstructed. But the nomination changes everything. Public scrutiny intensifies, schedules grow more demanding, staff members ask questions, security tightens. Every hour she spends preparing speeches or meeting donors is an hour she cannot personally oversee Drew's confinement. The campaign that should elevate her instead complicates her deception. Congress is no longer just an ambition, it is a liability. Nina's advice strikes closer to the truth than Willow wants to admit. Suggesting a nursing facility is not cruelty, it is pragmatism. Nina sees the cracks forming in Willow's carefully constructed facade. She sees exhaustion in her eyes, tension in her posture, the barely concealed panic when Drew's name is mentioned unexpectedly. A facility would offer structure, medical oversight, plausible deniability. It would remove the burden from Willow's hands and place it into a system designed to contain. But Willow refuses. Not because she cannot see the logic, but because surrendering Drew to institutional care would mean surrendering control. And control is the only thing separating her from collapse. If Drew leaves her house, he leaves her influence. He might speak. He might remember. He might reveal the inconsistencies in her story. Willow convinces herself that keeping him close is an act of responsibility, when in truth it is an act of fear. The daily routine becomes suffocating, crushing pills, measuring doses, waiting for them to take effect, listening for movement behind closed doors. Each creak of the floorboards feels like a threat. Each knock at the front door sends a shock of adrenaline through her veins. She must craft legislation by morning and calculate sedation schedules by night. She must smile for cameras while ensuring Drew remains docile. The duality fractures her composure. She grows sharper, colder, more calculating. Staffers begin to whisper about her intensity. Opponents sense a new edge in her public appearances. They interpret it as determination. They do not see the desperation beneath. And then there is Kai. His loyalty to Drew is unwavering, uncomplicated, and deeply inconvenient. It is only a matter of time before he insists on visiting, before he demands to see his friend with his own eyes. Willow prepares for that inevitability the way one prepares for a storm, by reinforcing lies, rehearsing explanations, and hoping the structure holds. When Kai finally arrives, concern etched across his face, Willow feels the first tremor of genuine uncertainty. She attempts to control the interaction, to limit access, to frame Drew's condition as fragile but stable. Yet she underestimates the power of instinct. Kai notices the sluggishness in Drew's movements, the unnatural fog in his gaze, the pauses that feel less like recovery and more like suppression. Something is wrong, and he feels it before he can articulate it. That visit becomes the catalyst. Drew, in a rare moment of clarity between doses, attempts to communicate. A look held too long, a fragmented sentence, a subtle resistance to the next pill. Kai sees it. The doubt that flickers in his eyes transforms into resolve. He begins asking questions Willow cannot comfortably answer. Why the isolation? Why the constant medication? Why the secrecy? Willow tightens her narrative, but every explanation sounds rehearsed, brittle, incomplete. The more she insists she is protecting Drew, the more Kai suspects she is controlling him. From that moment, the unraveling accelerates. Kai starts digging quietly, consulting medical professionals, comparing prescriptions, noticing discrepancies in dosage patterns. He pieces together a picture Willow has fought desperately to conceal. The realization horrifies him not only because Drew may be a victim, but because Willow, once perceived as compassionate and principled, may be orchestrating the very harm she claims to prevent. The shock is not merely personal, it is political. If the truth surfaces, it will not be contained within private betrayal. It will explode into public scandal. Meanwhile, Willow senses the shift. Kai's demeanor changes. His visits become less frequent but more intense. Questions linger longer. Silences stretch. She feels the walls closing in, not physically, but reputationally. The campaign team grows nervous as rumors begin circulating about inconsistencies in her personal life. A staffer overhears a tense exchange. A neighbor mentions unusual late-night deliveries of medication. Tiny fragments of suspicion start aligning into a dangerous pattern. Willow doubles down. She increases Drew's dosage, rationalizing that clarity only endangers him. She accelerates her congressional preparations, believing that securing the seat will shield her from scrutiny. Authority, she thinks, will protect her. Power will silence doubt. But in truth, the closer she comes to victory, the higher the stakes of exposure. The narrative of a rising political star collapses instantly if the public learns she manipulated, confined, and medicated a man for the sake of control. The ending for Willow begins to crystallize long before it officially arrives. It forms in Kai's determination, in Nina's worried glances, in Drew's growing resistance. It forms in the contradiction between the image Willow projects and the reality she conceals. When the truth finally edges toward revelation, when medical records are compared, when witnesses are questioned, when Drew finds enough clarity to speak, the shock will not be subtle, it will be seismic. Not only because of the crime itself, but because of the betrayal of identity. Willow built her ascent on the illusion of righteousness. The exposure of her actions will not merely end a campaign, it will redefine her legacy. In chasing power, she convinced herself she was protecting stability. In controlling Drew, she believed she was preserving order. But the very methods she used to maintain control are the seeds of her downfall. And as Kai fights harder for answers, as the evidence sharpens into undeniable truth, one thing becomes clear. Willow's carefully constructed empire is standing on borrowed time. The scandal is no longer a distant possibility, it is an approaching inevitability. When it breaks, it will not just end her political ambitions. It will confirm that the greatest threat to Willow was never her enemies. It was the choices she made in secret, believing no one would ever look closely enough to see. Britt can feel it before anyone says it out loud, the tension in the air, the sense that something fragile is about to shatter. There is a situation forming beneath the surface in Port Charles, one that threatens to spiral out of control, and she knows instinctively that she stands far too close to the center of it. The danger is not loud yet. It does not announce itself with sirens or gunfire. Instead, it moves quietly through whispered plans, secret alliances, and emotional manipulations that could ignite at any moment. And as the pressure builds, Britt realizes that the coming days may force everyone to reveal who they truly are. At the heart of it all is Liesl, relentless and unwavering as ever. She refuses to let go of her vision for Nathan and Maxie's future, convinced that destiny has already written their reconciliation. In Liesl's mind, obstacles are merely temporary inconveniences to be dismantled. The blossoming connection between Nathan and Lulu is one such obstacle. So is Maxie's renewed closeness with Spinelli. Liesl sees these relationships not as genuine emotional bonds, but as misalignments that must be corrected. And when Liesl decides something must be corrected, she does not hesitate. She strategizes. It is only natural, then, that Liesl turns to Britt. As her daughter, Britt has long been both confidant and reluctant accomplice. Liesl believes Britt can help orchestrate subtle encounters, manipulate timing, nudge emotions back into place. A carefully arranged dinner. A misunderstanding planted at the right moment. A reminder of shared history whispered when defenses are low. Liesl imagines Britt stepping into the role of quiet architect, guiding Maxie and Nathan back toward each other while destabilizing Lulu and Spinelli just enough to weaken their hold. But this time, nothing is simple. Because Britt is distracted, deeply distracted, her concerns stretch far beyond romantic meddling. Jason's safety weighs heavily on her mind. Every risk he takes, every shadowy alliance he enters, feels personal. She has seen too many situations escalate beyond control, too many calculated risks turn into irreversible tragedies. The thought of Jason being pulled into another dangerous web unsettles her in ways she cannot easily articulate. And then there is Lucas. Lucas's plan is audacious, reckless, and potentially catastrophic. His intention to infiltrate Windermere and steal a dose of the mysterious medication so he can reverse engineer its composition sounds bold in theory. In practice, it is a ticking time bomb. Windermere is not a place one simply walks into unnoticed. Security is layered. Surveillance is constant. The wrong move could expose him instantly. Britt understands the stakes better than anyone. If Lucas is caught, the consequences will not be limited to legal trouble. There are powerful forces behind that medication, forces that do not tolerate interference. Lucas could disappear. He could be silenced. And if his connection to Britt becomes known, she could be dragged into the fallout. Her fear is not abstract. It is vivid. She imagines Lucas cornered, unable to explain himself. She imagines retaliation swift and merciless. The potential for a double catastrophe looms large, Lucas endangered and Britt implicated. The more she tries to calculate outcomes, the more she realizes how thin the margin for error truly is. Meanwhile, the emotional chaos around Nathan and Maxie threatens to intertwine with this darker storyline in unpredictable ways. If Liesl pushes too hard, if Lulu senses manipulation, if Spinelli feels betrayed, fractures could form not only in relationships, but in alliances that might otherwise provide support during crisis. Britt knows that stirring emotional turmoil now could destabilize everyone at precisely the worst moment. Yet resisting her mother comes at its own cost. Liesl does not easily accept refusal. As tensions rise, an unexpected shift begins. Rumors spread that Britt herself may be in danger, not from romance, not from family intrigue, but from something far more immediate. The same forces Lucas risks provoking could decide she is a liability. Conversations grow hushed when she enters rooms. Messages go unanswered. Subtle warnings begin to surface. And suddenly, the narrative changes. Instead of debating whether Britt will assist in manipulating love lives, the focus turns to survival. People who once questioned her motives now scramble to protect her. Jason grows more vigilant. Allies begin coordinating quietly. There are discussions of relocation, of temporary disappearances, of drastic measures to shield her from potential retaliation. The urgency creates an atmosphere of controlled panic. Every decision feels extreme, every adjustment bordering on madness. In trying to save Britt, some begin contemplating actions that are dangerously irrational, counterplots, preemptive strikes, risky negotiations with powerful enemies. The effort to protect her becomes so intense that it threatens to spiral into a new kind of chaos. The irony is suffocating. In attempting to prevent disaster, they may be accelerating it. Britt senses this shift, and it terrifies her more than the original threat. She does not want to be the reason others endanger themselves, yet she cannot deny the reality that events are moving beyond her control. Liesl's romantic schemes now feel trivial compared to the storm gathering around Windermere. Lucas's determination to uncover the truth has set something in motion that cannot easily be reversed. The coming days promise confrontation. If Lucas proceeds with his plan, exposure seems inevitable. If he hesitates, unanswered questions remain. If Liesl continues interfering in Nathan and Maxie's lives, emotional fallout could complicate every alliance just when unity is needed most. And if the forces behind that medication decide to send a message, Britt may find herself at the center of it. Everything is interconnected. Romance, loyalty, revenge, survival. What began as strategic matchmaking could collapse into life-threatening stakes. And as everyone makes increasingly desperate adjustments to protect Britt, the line between calculated defense and reckless overreaction blurs. Poor Charles stands on the edge of escalation. The only certainty is that once the first domino falls, no one will remain untouched. Jocelyn may be standing on the edge of the most dangerous chapter of her life, and the terrifying part is that she can almost feel it closing in. If Cullum discovers that she is a member of the WSB, the fragile balance she has been maintaining will shatter instantly. What once felt like a calculated risk will become a lethal mistake. From the very beginning, since that night they were stranded together during the blinding snowstorm, Cullum sensed that something about her did not add up. Her composure was too controlled. Her questions too precise. Her reactions just a fraction too delayed. At the time, suspicion lingered in the back of his mind. Now, it may evolve into obsession. Cullum is not a man who ignores instinct. If he begins digging deeper into Jocelyn's past, tracing her movements, analyzing her connections, it will not take long before fragments begin to align. A coded call, an unexplained meeting. a pattern of presence near sensitive operations. And once he connects those fragments, the consequences will escalate with ruthless speed, because this is no longer about flirtation or curiosity. This is about exposure. Brennan senses the storm brewing, but even he may be underestimating its force. His initial fear is that Cullum might use Jocelyn, recklessly send her on missions designed to test loyalty or push her beyond safe limits. But the threat is darker than manipulation. If Cullum uncovers that she has insight into his involvement in Faison's final project, the stakes change entirely. Knowledge is power, but in this world, it is also a death sentence. Faison's last operation was built on secrecy layered over deception. Cullum's role in it is not something he would allow to surface. If Jocelyn is perceived not merely as suspicious, but as informed, she becomes a liability. And Cullum does not negotiate with liabilities, he eliminates them. The realization of that possibility sends a chill through Brennan, but it may already be too late. Cullum's behavior shifts. His questions grow sharper. His charm turns colder, more probing. He tests her reactions, looking for cracks. Jocelyn, determined and defiant, attempts to adjust. She recalibrates her approach, alters her communication patterns, creates subtle diversions. This new adjustment is strategic, meant to redirect suspicion and regain control. But the very act of adjusting may confirm Cullum's doubts. He notices the change. He senses the distance. And instead of retreating, he tightens his focus. What follows could be a shock that ripples through every alliance she has. If Cullum decides to act, it will not be impulsive. It will be calculated, silent, and devastating. A mission gone wrong. A betrayal staged convincingly. An accident designed to erase her from the board without leaving fingerprints. The danger is no longer hypothetical. It is imminent. And as this new shift unfolds, the real twist may be how quickly everything spirals. Brennan scrambling to intervene, the WSB forced into damage control, allies questioning who compromised what. In trying to adjust to survive, Jocelyn may have triggered the very confrontation she hoped to avoid. The coming revelation will not be subtle. It will be explosive, confirming that the game she stepped into was never about survival alone. It was about who strikes first.